which would give more interest.
Yeah.
And then the year before, last summer, they gave another $1 million. In fact, President Davidson came over here for it.
How about that?
In fact, it was just about a year ago, because the board meets.
After he starts talking, then I will ask.
You just tell me when you're ready, Bill.
I'm ready.
Bill E.
He's rolling.
Okay, Bill, do your voiceover.
We had an opportunity to talk about Riverside with the superintendent, Colonel William D. Maginnis, who's been at Riverside for 30 years and has been superintendent since 1976.
Okay, pause just for a second and then ask your first question.
How long has Riverside been here in Gainesville?
Riverside was started in 1907 by the Board of Trustees of Brenau College. They felt that they needed a private preparatory school for boys in this area.
Just for a second, I'm sorry. Were you able to zoom in good enough and stop?
Was Brenau a woman's school at the time?
Okay.
It
Bill,
was up just a few years ago.
let's keep the tape rolling. See if you can ask that question a little bit longer. Make the question 5 seconds long.
Okay.
So that Bill can zoom into maybe a way shot. By the time you finish, you can stop and you can start.
Oh, okay.
Anytime you're ready.
You're rolling?
Oh, no, you ready, Bill?
We're rolling.
Okay.
Riverside has been here in Gainesville, I guess now for 70, 75 years. How long has it been a functioning academy?
Riverside was started by the Board of Trustees of Brenau College in 1907. They felt there was a desperate need for a good preparatory school for boys in this area, and since that was an all-girls school, they felt it would complement each other.
The school is known to a large extent with its connection to the late General Beaver. He did not start the school then?
No, General Beaver finished the University of Georgia in 1903, where he'd been an outstanding student and athlete. He was the first All-Southern football player at the university, the youngest captain of the baseball team they've ever had. The way he got into school teaching, he won the Rhodes Scholarship. And in order to save him enough money to go to Oxford, he took a job at a private boys' school at Stone Mountain, and where he taught foreign languages and coached all the sports. At that time, in order to save money, he also coached the Fort McPherson Army football team, with the result he didn't draw any salary from the boys' school to where he taught. After he'd been there several years, he went to the head of the school and said he wanted to settle up what they owed him. And they didn't have enough money to pay him off. So he said, well, what are you going to do about it? And he said, well, do you want to buy the school? So at 27 years old, he owned the school.
Interesting way to do
Right.
education.
That's right.
When did he come to Riverside?
In 1913, he was hired by the Board of Trustees of Brenau as the superintendent. He had 2 pretty good years, and then there was some litigation with the board. With the result, they had a rather long case in court, and the verdict was that Beaver was right. The verdict of the court was that General Sandy Beaver had a right to purchase the school at half of what he thought it was worth.
So Beaver not only then was superintendent, not only participated in Riverside, he came to own.
He came to own it about 2.5 or 3 years after he had originally come to Gainesville.
And the remainder of his career was spent here.
Spent here. He was at Riverside for 56 years.
What could you suggest would be the distinctive purpose of this school, and then in answering it, contrast it with a typical high school? What's different?
Well, we feel that it's primarily college preparatory. Each year, considerably over 90% of our graduates go to college, all different types of colleges. And the military is, the way I like to phrase it, is just icing on the cake. The discipline and the upbringing and the self-discipline that military teaches, I think is beneficial and assists the students the rest of their lives.
Has it been a military school since its inception?
In its inception, it was a semi-military school. And it gradually became more and more structured in the military, and then in 1923 was associated with the Army Junior ROTC, beginning in 1923.
During the life of the academy, has it graduated a good many military officers, career officers?
I have a list of the graduates of West Point, and it's far too long to mention all the names.
So the military tradition here is a strong.
Very, very strong. In fact, we've had several graduates who have come back as Army officers and working for the ROTC program.
You can be very proud of, as I understand it, some outstanding facilities. You're building, I understand, a new field house. You've got good facilities existing here. What have you got to offer for prospective students?
Well, in 1978, we completed a new library and study hall complex, which is named for Sandy Beaver. We will be able to utilize the new field house, which is now under construction this fall. It's 45,000 square feet, and it'll permit us to have athletic and military activities regardless of the weather. In fact, we can put the whole cadet corps in there for a parade. It's that large.
One of the striking things about the school now is your twin campuses. The one in Florida is basically for the cold weather season. Will the new field house in any way change that?
Not really. Riverside started going to Hollywood, Florida in 1932, and have been doing it every year since, except during World War II, when the United States Navy used the campus. And then in 1959 and 60, when the hotel that was originally the main building, a portion of it burned and was torn down, and we put up a new 3-story building, which is now the main barracks.
Is the purpose of the Florida campus weather-related, that is?
That's right. It's a change in scenery, and plus it's the best 3 months of the year to be out of the cold weather. And we've found that our infirmary is utilized little or none at all while we're in Florida. Yet before we leave for Christmas here in Gainesville, we might have 15 or 20 boys in there every day.
Let me ask you about your financial situation. A good many, you are still a private school.
We're a eleemosynary nonprofit private school.
A good many schools in that category are not nearly as pleasantly fixed as Riverside. How do you explain your...
We feel extremely fortunate, and it's due primarily to the business acumen and foresight of General Beaver in the investments he made. He started investing in private utilities back in the 30s, public utilities, sorry, back in the 30s, and with the result that our income through investments is enough to take over the lapse between what we bring in for operation and what it costs to run the school. We're very economical in our charges. For instance, next year, the cost for a new cadet coming in is $4,400.
That covers everything.
That covers room, books, board, tuition, uniforms, laundry, haircuts, everything.
For the entire academic year.
That's for 9 months.
It has also been publicized rather widely lately that in addition to the support for Riverside that General Beaver has provided, he has also had initiated, set up, and is now in fact in practice a very substantial endowment fund at the University of Georgia. How did that come about?
It has always been General Beaver's goal. He always was so grateful for the help and assistance he received while he was a student at the university from certain professors. And he always felt that they ought to be, their income should be increased if they did such a good job. He could never reach an agreement with the authorities at the university during his lifetime. So in 1978, the Board of Trustees gave $1 million to begin the Sandy Beaver Endowment, which is to supplement professors' salaries who actually teach in the classroom. Again, last summer, an additional $1 million was given by the Board of Trustees in General Beaver's name for the same purpose. I would like to mention one thing. The school is completely independent financially, and another unique thing, and I don't think that, I don't know another school can say this, and in other words, we cannot accept a gift. In other words, if you were a former student and want to give the school $10,000, we couldn't take it.
There will be very few schools that can turn that down.
That's right. It's hard to turn down, but we can't take it.
We've been talking with Colonel William Maginnis, Superintendent at Riverside Academy.
Very good. Is there anything that you would like to tell us that you can think of? Is there anything else about Sandy Beaver that you would like to talk about?
He used to tell a story, but when things got so bad about 1916 and 17, the building burned, and he and his wife taught 2 or 3 boys that still stayed here over in another smaller building. They finally got money and rebuilt this building right here, the main building, Lanier Hall. And he went to Virginia and hired a man named W.D. Mooney, who had written a Latin grammar book and was a superior schoolman. And then at that time, another man became available named Colonel O.R. Horton, who had been down at Georgia Military College briefly, had been in World War I. And he hired them, and he told him, now, Colonel Horton and I will go out on the road this summer and solicit students, and Major Mooney would remain on the campus and do all the correspondence. And he said, if the price of cotton goes up, we'll be on the easy side, living on the easy side of Easy Street.
Did it go up?
And the price of cotton doubled, and they opened with over 100 students, and that was about 1919.
Which made it, I guess.
And then from then on, it just grew. In fact, during the Depression, when the school opened the Florida campus, where all the other schools in the country were losing because of the economy, losing enrollment, Riverside started gaining enrollment. Started jumping up into the 400s and 500s in student body. And then, of course, World War II came along, and they added a junior college, had a junior school, a high school, and a junior college, and operated during the war at around 850 and 900 students.
Do you intentionally cap it at 500 now?
Our capacity, the way we want to room the cadets, right now on the Gainesville campus is 504. We have right now, and have had for about a month and a half, waiting lists for the 7th grade and 8th grade and foreign students. We still have openings for the high school grades, but they're rapidly filling up.
So you still teach, what, 7?
7 through 12, plus we always have, I guess, 10 or 12 postgraduates.
You want anything else?
I think that's good. Everything got a good sound and camera-wise?
Yeah. No cameras.
Okay.
I had several people from the state universities up talking and requesting things. And General Beaver said the town kind of dozed off. He said what these people were asking for more money and less work, really. But they went too long into detail about it. The town finally said, Sandy, what are they talking about? He said they just want more money and less work. He said, meeting's adjourned.
Well, that was it.
When Eisenhower had his heart attack in, I think it was 1957, I was standing out on the porch. He walked out and come put his hand on my shoulder. And you never knew what he was liable to say, because he'd say just things that sounded ridiculous sometimes. He said, you know what I'm going to do? And I said, what's that? He said, I'm going to make $1 million on Ike's heart attack. I said, oh, okay. So about 6 weeks later, he buzzed me and I came in. I said, what is it? He said, you remember when I told you about Ike's heart attack? I said, yes, sir. He reached it down in the drawer and he pulled out a thing and handed it to me. It was $1 million certificate bond.
How did they do it?
Investing, see, the stock market went down, just way down, when Ike had that heart attack. And he just waited till it got to the bottom and bought. And then it went back up. He made $1 million. I asked him, so what are you gonna do with that, John? He said, I'm gonna look at it, so I never have seen one, I'm gonna look at it for a while and reinvest it. That's the way he operates.
Wow.
Oh, okay. All right. If you don't mind, you can just sit there, and I'm gonna tell Bill a question to ask, and then he's gonna ask it. You don't say anything this whole time. All right. Why don't you,
Yeah, you probably hear a jump. You
Very
didn't.
clear.
All right, you just want me to ask generally a little background of Riverside and General Beaver.
well, don't worry about the background. This is like your second question, what your first one.
Connection between Beaver?
I just wrote down, tell us about General Beaver and Riverside. That was
Okay.
the gist of what you asked.
Just tell me when and I'll do it.
Let's just alternate these deals, have maybe a a waist shot, and he asks one, and the next question have a medium close up, vice versa. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
What is the connection really between General Beaver and Riverside Academy?
Okay, you ready, Bill?
Yep.
Okay, when did he come to Riverside?
Is it true that General Beaver did not start Riverside, but he did come to the school to work and teach some years after?
Okay, you talked something about, I wrote down, he came to own. How did he come about to own
Okay.
the school
All right.
or whatever?
You won't go into detail about that?
You know, most of these we aren't going to use anyway, the way it'll go, but just for the safety's sake, we'll have it.
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. General Beaver, as I understand it, came at some point not only to teach here and work here and act as superintendent, but he came actually to own the school. How did that happen? And why did he spend his life teaching when he could have been a Wall Street financier, evidently?
Okay. You ready, Bill?
Mhm.
Billy? Military school since inception.
Has Riverside been a military school since its inception?
Ready?
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the facilities here. I hear that you're constructing a new field house.
Okay. You have what are known as some very, very fine facilities here that you can be very proud of. I understand you're constructing a brand new field house. Tell us about that.
Ready, Bill?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One unique aspect of Riverside is that it has two separate plants, or however you want to say, two separate plants, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Say campuses, I like that.
All right. Is it true that one of the unusual things about Riverside that's not common to other public schools is you enjoy two quite different and separate campuses?
Can we do that one more time?
Public and private schools.
Is that, the way you asked that, is that
No,
okay?
private schools.
Okay.
I'll say private schools, all public, certainly not public.
All right. You would ask it again?
Say unique, not unusual.
All right.
You ready, Billy?
Yes.
Okay.
One of the things which makes Riverside particularly unique among private schools and military academies in general is you enjoy two completely separate campuses. How did that come about? This is the tedious part of it.
Okay, ready, Billy?
Yes.
let's talk about, let's talk about Riverside's unique financial situation.
What about Riverside's unique and very positive financial situation? You enjoy, evidently, unlike most other private schools, a very healthy financial base to operate on.
Ready, Billy?
Mm-hmm.
However you want to ask about the endowment fund.
All right. General Beaver has received a great deal of acclaim lately, not only for his contribution to Riverside, but as I understand it, he also has made available two very substantial endowments for faculty teaching at the University of Georgia.
The Board of Trustees made that available.
For 607.
All right, you mean to rephrase that?
Okay.
All right.
It was his goal to do it, but he didn't have
The
to get
trustees
that.
did it.
He didn't have to get to it.
All right. In addition to providing ongoing and very healthy support for Riverside Academy, the Board of Trustees that administer the Sandy Beaver estate and the fund also has recently set up a couple of very substantial endowments for the University of Georgia. Can you tell us about those?
Okay, it's something to the effect like, it's apparent that Sandy Beaver was not only a very, well, anyway, I want you to ask him something like, can you tell us maybe a funny story about him? Not only was he a certain kind of man, but also had a colorful personality. Can you tell us maybe a funny story of his, somewhat better?
I could well imagine that General Beaver was a very fine schoolman, a very good educator, and given the nature of his bequest, was very skillful in financial matters as well. He must have been, in general, quite a character, quite a remarkable man.
That's it.
All right.
That's great.
We had-
636 on this card.
We had a teacher in fact, and he got one time complaining, had a whole list of complaints. The general sat there, didn't ever change his expression. He didn't look mad at him, just sat there.